Becoming a startup founder is hands down one of the most rewarding decisions I've ever made in terms of the learning opportunities, growth opportunities, and the freedom it has given me. But venturing out on your own can be scary, and startups are roller coasters. And so in this video, I'm going to share my updated top 10 tips for aspiring founders who are maybe considering starting a company in 2026. Hi there, if you're new to this channel, my name is Maurya. I'm an entrepreneur and author and the creator of the popular one-page business modeling tool, Lean Canvas, used by millions of founders around the world. On this channel, I document my from-the-trenches startup lessons, which I turn into systematic strategies and techniques for launching and growing startups. So let's dive into the list. Coming in at number 10 is your business model is much, much greater than your idea. Now, everyone obsesses over their idea. Is this the right idea? Is it big enough? Is it innovative enough? But this, I find, is the wrong question. The right question to be asking is, does the business model work? I've seen brilliant ideas with broken business models fail. I've seen mediocre ideas with solid business models succeed. Here's what most founders miss. Before writing a single line of code or breaking out the product, stress test your business model. One of the fastest ways to do this is to use a Lean Canvas, which is free at leancanvas.com. Think of a Lean Canvas as a one-page business plan, but unlike a business plan, which takes a long time to write, creating a Lean Canvas only takes 20 minutes and you can simply and easily share it with others. The next lesson is very timely, given that we are living through the era of AI. Lesson number 9, use AI to learn faster, not just build faster. I find that everyone is focusing on how can AI help me build faster. I totally get that because these tools unlock product development for a lot of people and it can potentially help you build a product 10 times faster. But I find that this too is not enough. It is not the right question. Building a successful product has never been about can I build this, but rather should I build this? And the real question isn't how can AI help me build faster, but rather how can AI help me learn faster? I'm actually launching a new product called Lean Spark in January 2026, which is an AI co-founder that helps you do exactly that. Founders who can build 10 times faster and learn 10 times faster will have a 100x advantage over others. If you want to learn more about Lean Spark, you should check out the link in the description below. So let's move on to lesson number 8. Think of your MVP as a minimum valuable, not just viable product. A lot of people have heard of MVPs, but aiming at just viability or will customers pay for this is not enough. In order to build a successful startup product, you have to focus on building something that isn't just viable, but simultaneously desirable and feasible. If it's not something customers already want, you could drop your price down to zero and people won't still care about it. And if it's not something you can build quickly enough, you will fail to capture the market. So when you think of MVP, don't just think of building a minimum viable product. Think of a product that is minimally desirable, viable, and feasible. And that's what I recently redefined as a minimum valuable product. Something that customers care about because you nail a problem that they want solved, something that is big enough that you can charge money for, and deliver a solution quick enough so you start gaining traction in the market. Okay, so next up is lesson number 7. Sell before you build. Piggybacking on the last lesson, even when you know you can build your MVP, there's still a risk that you'll build something nobody wants because you haven't yet launched your product, which is why you need to test your desirability, viability, and feasibility assumptions ideally before you launch. Now, this may be a bit counterintuitive, but the best way to do this isn't by building a product first and seeing if anyone will care enough to buy it, but rather by flipping the script and selling your product before you build it. Think demo, sell, build versus build, demo, sell. If you can't sell the demo, why build the product? And no, contrary to common belief, you don't need a working product to deliver a compelling demo. I get this question a lot, so I recommend that you check out other videos on this channel for examples of how to do that. Lesson number 6, minimum success criteria beats perfect validation every time. Founders waste 6 months, I find, chasing perfect validation. How many interviews is enough? How much data do I need for statistical significance? Here's the truth. You'll never have 100% certainty, especially in a startup. And even achieving statistical significance at the early stages of a product requires a lot more traffic and time that most founders just don't have. Instead, I recommend using the concept of a minimum success criteria. The basic premise here isn't to chase unrealistic, aspirational, maximum upside goals, but rather to define realistic minimum goals that you can use to determine if your idea is on the right track or not. Think of it as the smallest outcome you would use to keep working on your project or idea. I recommend defining 3 time horizons for your minimum success criteria. The first is at the founder level. This is where you try to think of the smallest outcome you would need to achieve in 3 years, which is enough time to get to product market fit, to declare your project a success. As an example, when I was writing my first book, I set my minimum success criteria to selling at least 100,000 copies of my book in 3 years. The next level here is the 90-day minimum success criteria goal. This is where you extrapolate your 3-year goal into something more tangible and immediate. If you can't hit your 90-day goal, you're sure not going to hit your 3-year goal, and so this is a focusing function. You can go even a further level down, which I recommend, which is down to the experiment or the sprint level. Think of a sprint as a 2-week time box that you use to test your ideas. The key question to ask here is, what meaningful progress can I make to move the needle on my idea in the next 2 weeks? Then get to work. When you use this 3-level minimum success criteria framework, the question becomes not, do I have a perfect data to analyze my idea, but rather the question becomes, do I have sufficient data or evidence to move my idea forward? And if not, how do I course correct or pivot to do so? In that same vein, lesson number 5, stop guessing on what to build next. Use the RICE formula instead. Now, your gut is going to tell you most of the times to fix the easiest thing or the most exciting thing for you, but how do you know that is the right thing that's going to move the needle on your idea? At any given time, there can be multiple paths to go down. How do you know which is the right one? The way that I do this is at the start of every 90-day cycle, I make a list of all the ways I can hit my 90-day goal. I know I can do all of these things simultaneously, and so I rank each one using a Fermi-RICE framework. If you want to see the full framework, you should check out this video over here. The goal here isn't aiming for perfect planning, but using a good enough rapid estimation methodology to pick potential winning ideas from losers. Then you start working on your most promising short list of ideas and use the next lesson to determine if you picked correctly. Lesson number 4, use an evidence ladder to test what's working. This is one of my favorite Edwards Deming quote of all time. In God we trust, all others bring data. When it comes to validation, most founders collect the wrong kind of validation. They ask, would you use this? And people say, yeah, probably, maybe. That's pretty worthless because people usually don't follow up with what they say they'll do down the road. The idea of the evidence ladder is to map your prospects or what they say or do into 4 levels. Level 1 is opinions. And these are things like, yeah, I'd probably use that, which is not all that strong. Level 2 is evidence of active search. This is where you find your prospects or potential customers actively seeking or using other solutions, which is more promising than level 1. Level 3 is actual commitment. This is where you get a prospect to pre-order or commit to using your product with something like a letter of intent or actual payment. And as you can see, this is a lot stronger than level 1, but the ultimate level is retained revenue. Can you actually secure payment from your customers, which is the first form of validation? I say first because simply getting someone to pay you doesn't mean they won't ask for your money back a little down the road. The ultimate validation, in my opinion, is level 5, activation. This is where you create a happy customer, and when you do that repeatedly, people stay with your product. They keep buying your product and they refer you to other people. And that is the most promising rung in the evidence ladder. Okay, so with that, let's move on to lesson number 3. Your constraint is actually your advantage. If you're a startup founder, I know you're no stranger to constraints. Things like, I can't start because I don't have enough time, money, network, or fill in the blank here with some other resource that you don't yet have enough of. If you want to be successful as a founder, you can afford to fall victim to your constraints, which can be very paralyzing, but you have to instead find a way to flip the script and break the constraint. The best way I have found over the years for doing this is asking yourself a propelling question like, how can I sell my product if I don't have a team or money to build it? Rather than falling victim and doing nothing, think out of the box and you'll find several answers even in the past tips that I shared up above. Things like think minimum valuable product and reduce scope, sell before you build to attract customers, use that evidence to then attract early team members and potential investment if you still need it. Moving on to lesson number 2, have faith in yourself, be ruthless with your assumptions. So there's no such thing as a perfect idea because your idea will change, your business model will evolve, and your first customers would be your last. That's completely normal. But what doesn't change is your ability to learn, adapt, and systematically de-risk your idea. Don't ask, is this the idea? Instead ask, am I the founder who can search for the right idea that works? The skill isn't having perfect intuition, the skill is having systematic validation technique. Have faith in the process, be ruthless with your plan A. Every successful founder I know has pivoted multiple times on their idea, which again is completely normal. The way you reduce the drama on these pivots is by doing them quickly and continuously. When you're making mini course corrections along the way, you replace failing with learning, which is the key to faster breakthroughs. And finally, lesson number 1, just start. No YouTube video or book or course is going to make you succeed. If you're waiting for the perfect idea, more research, better timing, more savings, or one more course, my advice is to stop chasing that and instead just start. Entrepreneurship is like a martial art. You can't learn from the sidelines, you have to learn by doing. You don't need a perfect idea, you just need 90 days and the right mindset to start, and then iteratively take your idea from a starting plan A to a plan that works. Now, if you're considering starting up in 2026 or course correcting your already started idea, next week I'm releasing my complete and updated If I Launched a Startup in 2026 playbook with the exact 90-day system that I use broken down week by week. I hope to see you then. Until then, take care.